All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 411 Sports World Network on YouTube. I am Mr. 411. And hey, I'm not alone today. Have a very special person in here today. So glad he was able to carve out some of his time to share some valuable information to us. And y'all know that I'm a huge sports guy, and I follow sports intensely. And but not only do I do that, but things that spin off of sports. And so, we're going to talk today about Tennessee State University and the tremendous amount of money that has been calculated to be owed to them over decades and decades. And so today with me is Mr. Levi Ismail from Nashville, Tennessee, and that's Channel 5, correct?
That is Channel 5, News Channel 5 in Nashville, the
All
CBS
right.
affiliate.
CBS affiliate. All right. I definitely appreciate you doing this. Look forward to gathering all the information from you today, learning. I have my pen ready so I can get my notes. I'm ready for today because
Fair enough.
I follow you on your social media platforms on Instagram. I'm going to be following you on TikTok as well. Nashville News. I'll be following you there tonight. And I mean, you just do great reporting, and you just caught my attention. I don't even know how I ran across it. I guess it's because I follow the HBCU teams and everything in Nashville, Tennessee State, and then that kind of tied into falling into the information here about the 2.1 billion. And so you do a great job there. So I encourage everybody to follow you because you do an excellent job. Great delivery, things are clear. You ask the questions that are needed, and you serving more than just your community. You serving the whole country, man. The way you do the job that you're doing. So keep doing that.
Well, I'm honored to hear you say that, man. I appreciate it. This is definitely something that just, as far as Tennessee State University is concerned, I was not anticipating covering it in any capacity. Um, and then next thing you know, it turned into the snowball effect, right? One thing turns into another and turns into more stories and more, and you have a lot of questions. And those questions, turns out a lot of people had the same questions. They were just going unanswered. So I did my part in trying to help elevate the story and just share what's going on because there are alumni all across the country. And it wasn't just TSU alumni. There are HBCU alumni wondering, well, my university is on that list too. Wait a minute, how much money are we owed? And what can we do about it? Like that kind of stuff. I didn't realize the impact that it was having until I started running into people in person who told me, thank you for covering this story. I shared it with my friends, and those friends shared it with their friends, and alumni and next thing you know, I've got university presidents knocking on my door saying, hey, what's going on here? Because you're getting more information out there to our alumni than we are. And so, like let's see if we can answer some of your questions so that when the information does go out there, it's accurate.
Very good, and that's the whole point of all this. And I appreciate you supporting small media. Like myself,
Absolutely.
and because, like you said, the word of mouth, and that's what we're doing. We're doing some things that maybe some major uh, networks or et cetera may not, maybe have even the time to dive into it. And maybe it doesn't hit home like it does this way. My parents are, they went to South Carolina State University, so they gave me some background on a lot of things that
Okay.
happened during their times too. And but yeah, this is great, man. So before we start rolling into that and getting into that list that I'm very intrigued by, um, just a couple things about yourself. And if you don't mind, I mean, I'll say it for you, but then you can just give us a little detail. Uh, is it true that you have a Emmy Award winning? Did you win the Emmy Award for investigative reporting?
I have won a couple Emmy awards for investigative reporting and some national Murrow awards as well. But it always goes back to serving the community. I mean, I'm grateful that my peers were able to see the work and uh, you know share what we did and give us an award for it. But some of those stories are stories that I covered for months after, related to domestic violence, related to gun dispositions here in the state, related to covering hurricanes in California, or not California, in Houston actually.
Mhm.
Just a number of different things that this industry takes you all sorts of places. But I'm glad that I found a home here in Nashville, and the people here in Nashville have been very supportive of the work.
Very good, very good. And then another thing, you recognize, you always recognize as the best TikTok reporting. That's, so, I mean, TikTok is
Yeah.
hot, and so for that, congratulations with that too.
Thank you. Yeah, and then that goes back to our reach with all of this. I wanted to make sure that if you weren't going to see us on on 6 o'clock news to hear about what's happening with TSU, I could still get in front of you and share what's happening, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, or whatever. You have university officials reaching out saying, yeah, all of these folks are telling us about the TikTok that you just did. And I'll walk in the grocery store and someone says, hey, by the way, I just saw that last video you did on Instagram about TSU. I went to TSU.
Mm,
Like the reach is phenomenal, and the ability for people to share. I mean, it doesn't take all that much to hit the share button, and next thing you know, my story or our story here is reaching hundreds of thousands of people just because they're sharing it with their network, people I had no idea about.
exactly, exactly. I mean, today's a great example.
Exactly.
I ran across you, saw your story. I saw the interview with Eddie George on national TV. Uh, just following on YouTube when he was coaching there. There was some. He was talking about that to the faculty one time,
Yeah.
and trying to figure out what they would do if they received money, funds, and that's how I dove into it as well. So yeah, this is great. Just a little couple things about Tennessee State University. They are historically black college and university. Let's see, it started way back in 1912 as the Tennessee Agriculture and Industrial State Normal School for Negroes, and then eventually becomes Tennessee State University. It's in Nashville, Tennessee. As we mentioned that Nashville multiple times here. Oprah Winfrey, is a well-known alum from
Alumni.
there,
Yeah.
right? Alumni there.
Mhm.
For those who keep up with sports, there's tons. I mean, there's tons of Olympic medalists there that ran track there. Very famous track coach from Tennessee State, Ed Too Tall Jones, um, the number one draft pick in the NFL back in 1974, I believe, with the Dallas Cowboys. He went there, and now Richard Dent, for those who are big Chicago Bear fans, especially in their heyday in the '80s, late '80s, he Tennessee State as well. So there's a lot of rich history there. And again, that Ed Temple, that's the coach, the legendary track coach there. And I mean, it goes on and on and on. So it's a prestigious place, man. Uh, but what we're going to dive into next is now that list and also that 2.1 billion that's on the screen.
Yeah.
Anything you want to kind of give us a backdrop on this?
Well, as far as the list is concerned, this is a list that came out from the USDA. Okay, and so at the time, the USDA, Department of Agriculture, came out with a list saying here are the estimates that we have for universities that have been underfunded by their states for a period of, at that time, I believe it was about 30 years or so.
Okay.
And so you're talking decades where they just added up the totals of how much money was going to the state schools, like Tennessee, like University of Tennessee, as opposed to going to Tennessee State University. And so the difference in that money is how they calculated all of this. They said, all right, year after year, how much more money did the University of Tennessee get compared to Tennessee State University? That's how they added all of that up. And they did that for a number of historically black colleges, and they came up with the $2.1 billion that became a rallying cry for many alumni at TSU. Obviously that was the most amount of money out of all of the universities that were out there that were underfunded. But it definitely, it definitely made an impact here in Nashville, when people had the conversation over, well, how is this university uh, going to survive if you're telling us that you've underfunded it by $2.1 billion? I mean, you would think, obviously, yeah, you're going to run into issues. And so how can you expect the university to do as well as University of Tennessee when they've got, this, like the drastic difference? You can relate to it when you're talking about sports, right? You
Right.
watch a game at UT, they have the fireworks going, they have the lights, the whole display. I mean, it is a spectacle. And then you compare that to, what you're seeing in some of the other schools. It's like, yeah, there's a night and day difference of just funding alone. Well, people are saying, well, that funding goes a long way. And if you had $2.1 billion at TSU, that could correct a lot of issues. But what we found out in our reporting was that the $2.1 billion, sure, it was definitely a part of the conversation, but it wasn't the whole conversation. We realized that there was much more happening behind the scenes at the university that had to be corrected, that had to be fixed, that had to be talked about in order for them to even get a fraction of the money that they were hoping for.
Mm, wow. So I mean that 2.1 billion, and that's with a B, people. $2.1 billion. That's a lot of money. How did it even get to this point, or how do you believe it even got to the point that all this time just goes by and year after year the funding is less than at other universities?
Mhm.
How did it just get to a point where it was, and I'm just using this word, but possibly overlooked or went unnoticed all this time until till the USDA did this? Or I mean, what do you think?
Well, and I think, yes, there years ago, former president Dr. Glenda Glover, she brought up this number. She said not specifically $2.1 billion, but she said, you know, we've been underfunded for years by the state of Tennessee, and she mentioned that she was looking into the numbers and that it was millions and millions of dollars. I don't know if she anticipated coming back with a number as massive as 2.1 billion, but she did say something to that effect. And at that point, TSU was at a point where they were, steadily growing in enrollment. Before all of that, I think it did relatively go unnoticed. Like most people just would have assumed, okay, obviously you're going to give more money to University of Tennessee that has a larger population of students, but that's not the way that this land grant money works. This money is given to all of these universities that have an emphasis on agriculture. That's what the USDA comes into play. The Department of Agriculture is telling us that the money they've been allocating to the states has not been evenly distributed between the universities that are land grant universities in states like Tennessee. And so, yeah, I mean, it would go. I'm not surprised that it went unnoticed as long as it did. I'm surprised that the number got up to $2.1 billion. But when you think about it, the USDA sent that letter out to governors across the country, and all of those governors were told they should look into how they can get that money to the right place. They weren't told you have to get that money to TSU, or you have to get that money to Prairie View, or you have to get that money to wherever. No one said you have to do this. This was a here's the numbers, here's the what we've calculated, and we hope you can do something about it.
Mhm. Wow. Okay. And if anyone's out there, I see Hot Tub Tony. We appreciate you there. He says he's here.
Mhm.
If you have any questions, make sure you post them out here, and then and Mr. Ishmael will respond to them.
Do our
So,
best.
yep, he'll do his best to answer it. So, if you have anything, make sure you put it out there for us. All right. Oh man. So again, let me go ahead right here with this one.
Yep.
So with this gap, right? Are there any people in place that are maybe working to be in place to try to ensure that the funds come?
Well, and yes, I mean, you've seen it from TSU leadership at this point. We have, I'm saying we, but you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
Tennessee State University has new leadership under, a new president, and you have this new board as well. I mean, interim President Tucker has been in conversations with the comptroller's office, Jason Mumpower, different state officials here in Tennessee. You've seen some of the meetings and the videos that I've put together. And President Tucker has said, he's open to having more of these conversations and finding ways that they can cut some of the fat from the university stuff and I shouldn't put it that way. It's more of just like finding ways to slim down for the sake of keeping the doors open. And unfortunately, in the past few months here, it's meant that people have actually lost their jobs. There are a number of people who have, just out of nowhere been told that they're not going to be called back to the university. Now that's tough. And
Yeah.
on top of that, they've talked about increasing tuition and bringing some of the numbers up so that they can make up what they've lost. Okay, if it means doing that for the sake of keeping the university open, keeping the lights on, they are making some of these changes right now while having conversations with our state leaders to say we need to find a compromise for the money that you've already allocated for us. Uh, it was, I can't remember the exact year. It was a couple of years ago when Governor Bill Lee here in Tennessee said, okay, let's work on trying to get just even if it's $250 million, let's work on getting that number to the university. Let's make sure that we can allocate that amount of money. And that was their way of saying, okay, we understand that there's an underfunding issue that's been happening here. We've heard from the lawmakers, and we've heard from the university. Here's $250 million that we can allocate toward this. The issue is that the money could only go to certain things. It couldn't go to just everything. And that's what they've recently signed on for with the state officials, is they said, okay, if you see that we're making progress toward, raising some of the raising tuition, if you see we're making progress toward being more financially sound, cutting some jobs, doing some of the things that we need to do in order for you to trust us with this money. If you see we're doing that, then we should be able to use this money that you've already allocated as much as we need to. And that's what they've come to an agreement with at this point. Some of that money before was used for, and I had some notes that I took down here. Some of that money before was allocated for just deferred maintenance. Okay, so maintenance projects at the university. And there was still about $151 million left over for TSU to use. And now they're at the point where they can use a few $1,000,000 toward not only the operating expenses for the university, but also to make sure that they get some of these dorms up to date. That was one of the concerns early on, is that you had some of these universities, or you had some of these campus dorms that just weren't keeping up. And as soon as they had this influx of new students coming in, they didn't know where to put them.
Right.
So it was great for the university to get all these people and all this attention. You had Oprah coming in and doing a commencement speech and all that. But the problem is they spent, this was one of the issues that was brought up, is that they spent quite a bit of COVID money, one-time money, toward scholarships that they could not maintain for the 4 years that the students were there. And so what happens when you open the doors and you say all these people show up, but then you can't support them year after year? Well, then you're going to find the money from elsewhere. And that's what happened, is that the money had to come from somewhere. By the time they were done, end of last year, they didn't even know if they could continue the rest of that semester, and that was a tough pill to swallow, because you had You had the university asking the state for money in order for them just to keep payroll or just to meet payroll.
My goodness.
That was definitely an eye-opening point for us, and that once again sparked the conversation of the $2.1 billion. It's like, why should we be asking for anything if you owe us money? Well, you know what I mean? Like that's where the conversation went. And when what we heard from, what we heard from what ended up being the new interim president, Tucker, um, was that the university was not going to recuperate. Like they were not going to get this $2.1 billion, and making that the conversation as opposed to saying, all right, what can we do right now to help the students who are here? Like that right there was his focus, and it's still his focus.
Right.
The $2.1 billion, it became a point where a lot of people were hoping that this could be the saving point for the Tennessee State University. Like this could be the thing that gets them out of the hole. But the more you sit in that, the more it becomes the more it feels like that is the only reality. Like unless this happens, we're not going to be able to do anything else.
Right.
What about the students who are there right now?
And it just seems like if this is money that's owed, I mean, the simple solution seems to just pay it.
Yeah, I'll answer that one. No one's cutting a check for $2.1 billion. It's a number that was calculated over years and years. The USDA came out and said this is the number, and it reaffirmed a lot of suspicions for people. The thing about it is that Tennessee does not have that money just readily available.
Mm.
And we've seen universities sue their states to try to get that money and lose. Now, what happens when you lose? Not only did you put the state through legal issue, not only did you make it a legal issue, but now you've got to go to the same people you just sued to ask them for something. They're not quick to do anything. There's nothing, and that's what I said before, is that there's nothing in these letters that say you have to do this.
Yeah.
All it says is that here's what we calculated.
Right. Okay.
Figure out the rest. So I see the question up there of how can the state continue to withhold money from the institution when they openly admit that they owe the university? That's a good question. But the thing is, they're not keeping money from Tennessee State University at this point. They're saying that they have money that they've allocated to the university. They just wanted to make sure that the university was going to spend that money wisely and not end up in the same position that they were in before. That's not to say that they don't owe them. That's the other part about it. It's like, I don't want anyone to get it confused that I'm trying to say that the university is not owed this money. We see, like there are state officials that have it, admitted, like, yes, we owe Tennessee State University. That number, however, they don't agree on the number. And that's a pretty big part of it. If you don't agree on the number, well, then how can you get anywhere near that 2.1 billion?
Wow. It's not like it needs to be some maybe some high priced lawyers in there, but the catch-22.
Well, exactly. You can go the legal route, and they've seen it. I mean, we've seen universities try this. But President Tucker mentioned in one of the last meetings with the comptroller's office, he said, there are people out there who want us to, like fight for this money, and they're going to fight for the money, but they're also worried about what happens now. What can they take care of right now?
Right.
There are a lot of people out there right now who are confused as to whether or not TSU is going to be open this fall. They're open. Believe me, they're open. I've been on campus just as early as last week.
Yeah.
They are open, and they are preparing for a new school year.
Very good.
but it's not something that came easily, you know, and they're doing their best to make sure that if the university, if the state officials are willing to work with them, they're going to make the best out of this opportunity, get the money that they need right now, the money that they've been allocated for, which is a few $1 million that can actually make some improvements on campus. Take care of that stuff now and have the conversations about what else the state owes them at another time.
Okay. All right. So it is a push-pull type of scenario situation right now.
Yeah, and you know, I see it in the comments all the time in the videos that I've posted where people, you know, ask the same questions as what I'm seeing right now. You know, is so the university is no longer pursuing the lawsuit. The university is pursuing the money that they can get. I'll put it that way. I don't know, like I can't speak for the university. All I can say is that based on our reporting, it appears that the university is trying to move on from this $2.1 billion figure and focus more on the money that they've been allocated, what they can do about making the university as sound and financially stable as possible right now without anything else in the picture, you know, because if you sit and hope and pray that this $2.1 billion is going to appear in the bank account while you're not doing anything about it at the moment,
Right.
it's not going to fix the issues that they currently have.
What can you do? What can you now? I know that you're saying here, like if I'm correct here,
Mhm.
the money like the 250 million,
Yeah.
it has to be allocated a certain way. But in general, when you receive land grant funding, can that university use it for whatever they want to use it for? Let's say that every year they was getting the appropriate amount,
Mhm.
and this was never an issue. Is that what you can do anything you want with that land grant money?
No, you can't.
Okay.
Yeah. So that money is specific to certain needs when it comes to the agricultural departments. That's why you get that land grant money from, you know, the federal dollars. Um, so that was one of the issues that obviously complicated things, because when you say 2.1 billion, you're assuming that it just goes into the bank account and then you start pulling it out for whatever reasons you need to at the university. That's not how this works, and it needed explaining, but there wasn't anyone really offering much context there.
Okay.
2.1 billion sounds like a great number to fix a lot of things, but if it's not going to specific things on the university at the university, then you know it kind of loses its effectiveness.
All right. All right. And then you did see the next question that was out there, right? About the also, I think we talked about that.
Mhm.
Oh, here comes another one. All right. Let's see what we got here. You able to see that one?
Yep, and I understand what you're saying. They did vacate the original board and bring in new people, new leadership onto the this new board here. Um, but you have to also remember that between the time of me pursuing the first story, there were, I guess, Dr. Glenda Glover, and then there was another president that showed up, and then it became President Dwayne Tucker as well. So it went, I believe it was Ronald Johnson was the second person right after Dr. Glenda Glover. So it was like one person after another, and I could see where, you know, some people might think, yeah, they're just trying to remove people who brought up the issue of 2.1 billion, and now we have someone here who is more reluctant to have that conversation. I can tell you that from conversations I've had, uh, the university leadership wants to try and move away from that number, but not because they don't believe in that number. Does that make sense? Like they're not trying to move away because they think that it's a made up number and they don't care about it or anything like that. They want people to get the full picture of what's happening at Tennessee State University. $2.1 billion is a massive number that gets a lot of people talking across the country. A lot of people from HBCUs that have nothing to do with TSU. But what does that do for getting people in the door right now?
Right.
And I can tell you that leadership at this point is more focused on that than they are on a number that they don't think they can ever get. You know, this again. I'm not trying. I'm doing my best not to speak on behalf of TSU
Absolutely.
or or anything like that or the state. And I know sometimes it might come off like I've had people ask me like, whose side are you on, Levi? Like, aren't you on our side? Like, you should be reporting on our side or whatever. And I remind them, I'm a journalist. Okay, I'm an investigative journalist. My job, my responsibility is to make sure that I get to the truth, whatever that might be. And if I look at the numbers and the numbers show me that for years and years, Tennessee State University has had financial issues that were compounded on each other based on some of the more risky financial decisions that they made. Now we're at a point where the university has been told that even though you made those financial decisions before, you're still owed all this money. That makes it very attractive to look at the money and go, well, look, I think this could be our savior. Like, this could be the thing. No one, I don't want anyone to get the impression that I don't think this money is real. I do think that the university has been underfunded. I also think that the university has gone through a number of financial issues over the years that they are now trying to make sure they correct with different leadership that is willing to work with the state to get the money that they can get periodically. Whether it's $250 million right now, another $250 million a couple years from now, or whatever, this money at the very least is making sure that there's a TSU that we can see and expect this semester and beyond.
Yeah, because it's very important. I mean, a lot of people, especially from my race, need HBCUs. I mean,
Yeah.
HBCUs bring, uh, develop a lot of people in the workforce, in our country, and it's very important to have all these schools up and running, more than we know. And so I hope that there's a long-term solution put in place, and and the school just continues to thrive and thrive and thrive. Um, and this is just for me personally. I hope that the Oprah Winfrey's, the Jay Z's. I mean, the Michael Jordans. I would hope that there's a bigger voice from people that help, so that uh, just that voice. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people rally behind people at that status. You know what I mean? Just like with Deion Sanders. Deion Sanders, everywhere he goes, there's a mass following and support wherever he lands,
Mhm.
and that big volume there, that loud voice, it makes things happen. And so I hope that can help too, to kind of get things going, put a little
Yeah.
pressure, put a little more pressure out there on both sides to get something done.
And I
Because
think what you'll see, I didn't mean to cut you off or anything
no,
like
go
that.
ahead,
I
go ahead.
think what you'll see is many of those folks coming back into the picture once they feel that the university is on some sort of stable ground. And I'm not just talking about Tennessee State University, I'm talking about all the HBCUs that were on that list from the USDA. I think that there are a lot of people, in just like conversations that I've had with former presidents at TSU, uh, they've struggled trying to get donors interested in helping out the
Mhm.
university because they don't feel like their money is going to the right places. They've heard all of these different things happening about, where the state saying, oh, you spent your money here and it wasn't supposed to go to scholarships, it wasn't supposed to go to, they've heard all of those different reports. And so they want to make sure that if they're going to invest in something, that it's actually going to the right place and these people know what to do with this money. I imagine that the moment Tennessee State University can prove the model and show that they are doing what they can to sustain themselves, you're going to see many of these same people come back and say, okay, I feel more confident now about investing my money. And I hope that happens because, just like you said, we need HBCUs in this country. And the fact of the matter is, the USDA believed in HBCUs so much so that they were willing to put this letter out there not once, but twice. So Governor Lee here in Tennessee got 2 letters,
Oh, wow. Okay.
showing that, yes, in case you didn't hear us the first time, you've underfunded this university by $2.1 billion. And I mean, that letter may have just sat at the desk. I'm not quite sure. But we do know that there were multiple letters sent. There haven't been any since. At the time, it was a priority, and I hope it continues to be a priority.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And speaking of that list, right?
Mhm.
Is it possible that you could share a little bit about that list? Like, before we went live, I mentioned to you that I'm in the Middle Georgia area, and Fort Valley State University is in this area,
Mhm.
about 35 miles from where I'm at, and there was a report there from the state of Georgia that by a reporter in the Atlanta area that $600 million is owed to Fort Valley State University,
Yeah.
and now, so, I mean, through the land grant funding. So, what other universities out there, if you can name them, are under this same similar kind of ilk?
Oh boy. I don't have it off the top of my head
That's
right
okay.
now, but I can always pull it up. I think one of the issues that one of the issues we ran into before talking about this is that this doesn't apply to just all HBCUs, right? These are
Right,
specifically land grant universities.
right.
And so there were a number of universities out there wondering, okay, well, let me see if I can, is our school on that list or anything like that? And that wasn't the case. Like you didn't see them there. But I will say, kind of to go back to one of the questions there about future withholding of funding. Um, I do think that now that there is a spotlight on these states, on this land grant university money, on all of the funding that should be going specifically to HBCUs that have these types of programs, because you have the spotlight there will be people taking a closer look at how this money is being allocated. They know now that we will go through the numbers to figure out just how much money is going from one place to the other. And because of that, I hope what happens is that the states will be a little more cognizant about how they move going forward. Um, Knowing that there are journalists, there are reporters out there, there's obviously an appetite for seeing this information and receiving it from people just like yourself and many of the folks at HBCUs around the country. They want to know if this money is going to the right place and how we can keep it from being withheld again.
All right, very good, very good. I'm not going to hold you too much longer,
You're fine.
uh, but I'm very mindful of your time. We definitely appreciate you doing this. So, but what if let's just say that everything, let's say they receive $500 million,
Hmm.
right? Um, Tennessee, you saying that Tennessee State would have to have like a defined plan?
100%. And
Okay.
that's part of what they've been doing since we started our reporting. That would have been I want to say last November or so. Um, they've been trying to prove to the state that they have a plan for how they're going to spend this money. And, the last time I did a video on Tennessee State University was, referring to uh, President Tucker's 5-year plan for TSU. And, he laid it out. And some of those things were hard to talk about, when it came to increasing tuition, when it came to, cutting back on staffing, when it came to making sure that they trimmed up some of the spending on, travel and different costs here or there. Like a lot of that stuff was stuff that we did not hear before. Like there was not a defined plan that was put forward. And part of it, yes, because there was a lot of tension between prior leadership at TSU and the state officials. Um, but I remember pretty vividly, uh, one of the first things that the comptroller Jason Mumpower mentioned, and he's the person who you know tells state lawmakers like, hey, this money's being spent the right way or it's not. He said he appreciates the conversations they've had with President Tucker, and he feels like he is the perfect person for the job right now because they speak the same language. He's a bit former business person. He ran businesses in the past and was in the process of was working on was actually running a business at the time when they asked him to become the interim president for TSU. So he was working in, I believe he was working with charter schools at the time. And then this happened. He was on the board, but this comes forward and he's like, yeah, whatever we need. Okay. But he also understood that there needs to be a plan if this money was going to be sent anywhere. Uh, that I think was that was a very, that right there told state leadership that this was going to be a different experience with TSU than they've had in the past, for the better. Um, I can't speak to what issues they actually ran into in the past,
Right.
past leadership, but what I can tell you is that from seeing the conversations that they had in that meeting, it felt like there was a certain level of respect across the board, and that's what I believe led to some of this money being freed up to be used in different ways.
All right. Okay. Well, I think you dove into a lot there, and
I will say one last thing though about where they move now. How things progress from here.
okay.
Um, Tennessee State University is trying to get the word out there that not only are they open for business to get these students in, they understand that the students are the customers, right? And the students want an education. They are trying to make sure that they provide for the students that are there now and the students that are even thinking about TSU in the future. And so that means getting the word out there to say, yes, we are working with the state. The state sees us as a positive investment toward education. That is something that I think was lost in all of the shuffle of what's happening with the university, what's going to happen next, or whatever. Now we know that the university and the state are seeing eye to eye on certain issues. This money is definitely going to be a topic of discussion anytime the university runs into any financial hardships. They're going to go back to this number and they're going to say, well, where's the money? We have to remember that the more money that's going to TSU from the state, that $2.1 billion starts to get a little smaller, right?
Right.
At some point or another, they get caught up. And the hope is that that the university can do all the right things, put the right plans in place to where that number gets smaller and smaller, and eventually we're not talking about any of the negative financial issues at TSU. We're talking about TSU thriving in the future.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. And that leads me to one more thing. Then,
Sure.
on the campus or in the area, is there property that they can acquire, or property that they have and already have acquisition to that they can utilize, but they just need more funding to kind
So
of build something new?
yeah, TSU is actually building a new agricultural facility right on their footprint right now, right next to campus. And I don't know too much about the ins and outs of that, but I do remember when it was first announced, people were like, wait a minute, how are you even going to be able to pay for all of this? It's a multi-million-dollar project. Where's that money going to come from? Well, much of that money was already allocated. It was just a matter of making sure that they could show the state, hey, we've got ourselves in some financial footing. Okay. So there is a project that's actually underway right now on TSU's campus. And my hope is that they get this campus project up and running, finished. It's a shiny new product that they can show prospective students and say, listen, this is something that you can look forward to if you come here. And that could be, the topic of discussion moving forward. It's like, yes, they've got new facilities going in place. They're taking care of their campus needs. They're bringing in students. They actually have a place for the students to go. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's happening at the university that I think, unfortunately, we've overlooked in some of the conversations we've had about their financial hardships. But that doesn't mean that we can't go back, reflect on what's happened, and share it with as many people as we can. You know, this was always my intention from the beginning.
Right.
To help people understand what's happening, to help people see, to see the numbers for themselves, and hear from these officials themselves. A lot of these meetings, they never expected to have anyone show up. And yet here we are, we're recording these meetings, we're sharing them. Many of them had no idea that it was going to be it was going to have this kind of impact. But now they know. Not only are we watching, we're listening, and we will continue to listen.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, it'll just be a tragedy for Tennessee State University to go under. I just can't fathom that happening. I think something's going to happen here where we're going to get a good compromise, and we're going to get, everything's going to be on the way up. It's going to continue to trend up and for the better.
That's the hope.
And you know what? You triggered something else for me too, because I believe you did some reporting on this, but didn't Tennessee State, wasn't they supposed to have a hockey team, or they was looking into having hockey, dealing with sports?
They're doing it.
Okay, they're going to do it?
They're doing it. So they had to postpone by a year, and so the plan is for them to get this hockey program started next year.
Okay,
now,
good.
You think about that. That's a massive undertaking. I mean, for a university to just start up a new program like that, and I believe, I mean, hopefully you can correct me if I'm wrong here.
Okay.
I believe that would make the Tennessee State University hockey team the only Division I hockey program in the state of Tennessee. That's pretty big.
That is huge.
You think about all the other universities here in the state of Tennessee. There's so many Division I programs, and all of these different schools here, and TSU would have a hockey program. Go figure.
Yeah, go figure. And they're working with the Predators too, right?
The Predators
or the national team, or
yep. So they're working with the Nashville Predators. They're working with the NHL. I mean, last I checked, they already had a coach. They have a lot of the different. They have a lot of the different things already in motion. I mean, they just announced a new head basketball coach, Nolan.
Smith from Duke.
Yes, from Duke. Yes.
Okay, he played ball at Duke. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Him and in that same meeting, I believe it was, they announced that TSU will be playing some of their home football games at UT. Not this year, but next.
Really?
So think about that. That's putting TSU on a massive map, to say TSU will be playing football games at one of the largest football one of the largest football stadiums in the state, one of the most well-known football stadiums in the country. That's a pretty big accomplishment in itself. So, I mean, they're going to work out all of the details on all that, but I think TSU, from what I've seen so far, is doing a lot of things to make sure that they can keep the university around, but also show that the university is capable of thriving.
Yes, and I like the outside the box thinking. Having a hockey program, I think that's a great idea, especially when you have an NHL team in the city.
Exactly.
In the same city,
it makes perfect sense. But it's we're pretty far down south here. So, I grew up in Minnesota where tons of hockey programs, tons of hockey teams. Uh, but when they announced TSU would have a hockey program, I definitely, definitely raised some eyebrows around here. But just like you said, we've got a professional hockey team just down the road from TSU. It makes perfect sense that they would have one as well.
Yeah, it would look good to have that partnership and for them, the NHL, to partner like that. So that would be great. Hey, we were just talking a little sports there. So there was a question that was sent to me. It wasn't sent to me on the air,
Okay.
but he just kind of shot there through my phone, and we were talking sports. So with any of this, any type of funding, will it help athletes or the athletic department in any kind of way,
I
whether
don't
it's
know.
directly or indirectly or any?
Um,
Is there any way?
you could always say indirectly because it shows the student athletes that the university you're interested in is financially stable, can pay their coaches, can keep the lights on. That goes a long way. I don't know what that would mean for, directly paying for, different facilities, sporting facilities, or whatever it might be. Um, but you have to imagine that some of the student athletes who already chose TSU are breathing a little bit easier right now, knowing that it's going like that the school is that the university came to an understanding with the state and that there is money coming in, and this money will help the university in the long run. No one wanted to see a short-term plan or a short fix or anything like that. They wanted to see that the state prioritized keeping TSU around. And from what I've heard from TSU officials, they feel confident knowing that that's the priority right now.
Very good, very good. All right, well, we can end it right there. Hey, I thank you for joining
Absolutely.
and taking the time to do this, and we're going to help spread the word too, and going to keep following you, stay in touch with you, and look, the door is always open. So
Sounds
I
good.
look forward to seeing you again soon.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. I think we're gonna have some TSU reporting here in the next month, and so I'd be happy to come back and explain what we learned.
All right, thank you so much.
Sounds good.
All right, you have a good evening. All right, everybody, I'd like to thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you next week on the 41 Sports World Network. Have a good one.